Mastery by Robert Greene. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It helps with ranking and SEO and all this other stuff, and I really appreciate it because so much work goes into making these videos. You'd be surprised. A lot of work really goes into making these videos. So I have over 200 books now in my Audible library, and this author, Robert Greene, is the only one whose bibliography I fully own. A lot of people seem to hate on him for the perhaps dark impressions that his work seems to give off, like it's immoral, Machiavellian, manipulative, and evil in some way. But at the making of this video to date, this is probably his brightest, most practical, and exciting book. Definitely his least cynical. He says that we are all closer than we think to genius. We have access to mastery that those who extended the limits of human willpower and potential could only dream of having. The ideas in this book are based on neuroscience, studies in creativity, and the biographies of some of the greatest masters in history, like Henry Ford, Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Ben Franklin, Mozart, and Thomas Edison. A lot of the other guys I haven't really heard of, but honestly, their stories were still very impressive. So there are 6 steps to mastery. Of course, Robert Greene simplifying everything for us at the beginning and then breaking it all down by the chapter. Something else I really admire about him is his ability to effectively combine history with self-improvement. It's just uncanny. Chapter 1 is starting off. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 are different elements of the apprenticeship phase, like learning new skills, working with mentors, and acquiring social intelligence. Chapter 5 is the creative active phase, which was probably my favorite. It's insane. It's the craziest chapter. I think it's crazier than chapter 6. Okay, chapter 5 and 6 are, maybe it's a tie. But chapter 6 is, it's mastery. Leonardo da Vinci has probably the craziest story I've ever heard out of all of these people. He talks about finding, a life's task for all of us. It's very relevant to the times that we live in. A lot of us are missing something in life, and I think that's a sense of purpose. It's like a direction that so many of us are missing, and we walk around aimlessly through life, wondering what to do, where to go, and we have no idea what, how, why, when, and we painfully tiptoe our way to death. And it really scares me. There is nothing that scares me more than that. I think the fact that so many people on the planet don't have this, I think my life task is to change that and kind of flip the percentages at the very least. So Robert Greene lays out how and why to find your calling. He lays out the story of Charles Darwin, there's another one I forgot to mention, and his mastery of understanding nature, because he, as Greene puts it, submitted to reality. During chapter 2, and a lot of differences between then and now, of course, are stressed. But you do learn about where apprenticeship comes from and why it's important with the actual, natural way humans learn things. Repetition. Jim Rohn says that repetition is the mother of skill, and the world has always highly valued people who master skills and or combine them together in unique ways. Also, don't worry about how much you're being paid to learn. He said that the skills will pay off, and learning the right skills will seriously teach you how to get by with less anyway. And I don't know about you guys, but I needed to hear that. Now lately I've been trying to keep these reviews a little short because I value my time, I value yours, but I want to stress that a lot of the book goes super deep into everything I'm talking about and probably more. Robert Greene hammers everybody with as many examples to the point where you're like, Robert, I fucking get it. I get it. You can't read a whole book of his and not understand what he's trying to say. In chapter 3, he covers the nature of the relationship with the mentor. He has a way of grooving his viewpoints into the self-perceptions of the reader and or listener. Mentor relationships were never really my strong suit. One of the mentor-protege stories that he threw out here that kind of stood out to me was the Carl Jung and Freud one. This particular topic like mentor-protege relationships. It's a typical Robert Greene thing to talk about because it's very unusual. I've never heard any other book talk about it before, but it's very applicable and relatable to a lot of people. Social intelligence is explained in chapter 4, the leading story of which is about Ben Franklin and how he went into business and then inventing and then politics. But all of these things over time were weaved into his social rationality. And the people side of things, it's also not really my strong suit, but I'm learning how to fix that the hard way. Starting this next week. I thought I was gonna do it this last week, but the hard way is gonna have to be harder than I thought. He has keys to mastery in this book, by the way, for every chapter. Kind of like how he has keys to human nature and keys to power in Laws of Human Nature and his book 48 Laws of Power. And also what he calls reversals in his books. Chapter 5 is Awakening the Dimensional Mind. This chapter is huge. The audiobook is 16 hours long, and this chapter takes up a good 4.5. The leading story is this beautiful tale of a pianist who got so good at what he did that, well, that's in the book. I hate to spoil things like this for you guys. That's another reason I'm not really talking about all these different stories. If you want a hint, however, I kind of mentioned it maybe 5 to 15 seconds ago. Oh, and this boy is not Mozart. However, Mozart is talked about in this chapter. I really like the strategies he lays out in this one, particularly this one and the social ones, because I could use some of those. But this one, I used so many of the ones in this one to get really good at piano. I taught myself by ear. A lot of my viewers don't really know this about me, I don't think, but I taught myself piano by ear for 8 years. And when I quit, I started making beats, and then I started rapping, and then singing, and everything I do is completely self-produced by the note to the every single little degree. And my music is on my channel, if you guys want to check it out. I talk about the type of stuff that we learn about in the books I review. But the reason I stopped is that music is too, I mean, it's way deeper than this, but music is too saturated right now. A market, it's not as profitable as I originally thought it was. But I am convinced, the reason I'm mentioning this is that I'm convinced that I am better at music than anything else I've tried. So that's my closest story to mastery, but what's yours? Please let me know your experience in the comments below. Come on, you guys, you know this isn't just about me. I was a little surprised also, honestly. He talks about, Google and Y Combinator and their starts, and even the 10,000 hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell popularized in Outliers, but he didn't talk about Bill Gates.
Really, Robert? Really?
The leading story in chapter 6 is about a guy who wrote the most insane book, novel, essay thing. There was just a lot of, well, it was a really big creative project thing, okay? But it was met with the most unreal reception. Like no crowd reaction I've ever heard of to any book. And the form of thinking that puts projects like this together is the form of thinking that, well, it's the form of thinking that people will write about and study hundreds of years or thousands of years after you die. But the author explains how it works in the rest of the book, and when I understood that, when I heard it, I was astounded. I was blown away. It's the craziest thing I've probably ever heard in Robert Greene's books, period. Quotes, "Become who you are by learning who you are. What took you 10 years on your own could have taken you 5 with proper direction. Poor is the apprentice who does not surpass his master. If you are excited and obsessive in the hunt, it will show in the details. You cannot find anything new if you are unwilling to leave the shore." Direction 1. I recommend this book if you are you want to get good at something, whether you know what it is or not. I also recommend this book if you are getting good at a skill, but you're having a little bit of trouble. By the way, good is just one level. If you want to become legendary, that's okay too. This book is for every level, even levels that don't exist yet. Oh, and I also recommend this book for everyone who thinks that Robert Greene is a sociopath with no feelings, because I can see why anyone would think that based on his other works, but not based on this one. Direction 2. If you like this book, I recommend checking out Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, I mentioned earlier, and my favorite book of all time, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The parts about the energy and the thinking and the intangible forces, especially, there's a lot of really crazy shit that he talks about in the last 2 chapters that reminded me a little bit of the really crazy beyond what we see and even most of us even consider exists type of shit that you hear about in Think and Grow Rich. Mastery by Robert Greene. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video as well. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't know why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that little notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that will mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.